Okay. So again, to all of the attendees, if you have questions, go ahead and let me know in the chat box. I really want you guys to get a chance to ask the panelists your questions. I do have some seed questions, but again, this is your opportunity to speak with the panelists. So if you have questions, let me know in the chat. So I'll ask the next question I have. What are some common mistakes that you think should be avoided when choosing your career path, when making those pivotal decisions?
I would say in general, not going with what your gifts are, right? Doing what others are doing or doing what seems like it's going to be the fastest path for money, really looking at what your unique gifts are and your unique skill set is, and really going after what feels right for you in general.
I think also closing yourself off to, opportunities that are put in your path, because you may not, upon first glance, you may not think that is your chosen career path, but people's careers have they're such long and winding roads, and there are a lot of twists and turns. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice by closing yourself off to a potential opportunity, because you may not think that it is something that was in your original game plan. I went into grad school fully intending to pursue entertainment PR, and all of my internships were in completely different, subjects in that. And I found a love for personal healthcare products, and like what I'm doing now, I'm really enjoying. And, I've definitely adopted much more of a go where the wind takes me attitude. And I think it's gonna ultimately bring me some really interesting places that I may not have gone if I had closed myself off, because I thought, oh, I'm only going to do entertainment, so that's all I'm going to do.
I think a big mistake that some people make is relying on their job to showcase their skills. There's so many other opportunities for you to showcase what you can and can't do, or what you can do, excuse me. For me, I was always hesitant to go off and start a personal project that I'm working on currently. It's called Single Arab Female, and it's all about being honest, being a woman of Middle Eastern background, being honest about what it was like growing up in America, from coming from a very traditional background, and kind of being a sort of refuge for a lot of women that might be dealing with the same thing. And I didn't pursue that for a really long time because I was scared, and I was very hesitant to kind of put myself out there. But I quickly realized that it's a way for me to also showcase my skills as a professional and as a marketer. A lot of what I do every day, branding, social media, advertising, applies directly to this personal project of mine, and to show that I'm able to start something from start to end, and do it on my own and not be reliant on a company front to do that for me. That shows a great deal of skill. That shows a great deal of, being able to be a self-starter. So when you are hesitant about, pursuing a personal project because you don't think that it could help you, just know that I think a lot of bosses and a lot of companies are looking for people that are able to start things on their own. So go for it, and don't be scared, because the only loser is you in that sort of stage.
I think for me, the mistake that a lot of students, they reach out to me is that how do they get to expand your network? And I say, just go to people, because PR industry, in the end, it's a people-based industry. And especially for me from a different country, come to United States and have to adapt different cultures in PR industry, it can be a challenge. So I think, in other words, go reach out to people. I always do, because I have no idea about what healthcare industry is about when I'm working as a PR professional. So I will go on LinkedIn and search for people who have similar background like me, and I will reach out to them and ask them, can we have a cup of coffee, because I really want to know more about your industry. So by talking to people face to face or through a phone call, you can narrow down and figure out what is your passion. In the conversation, I will ask, what is your career journey? What is digital health about? What is public health? What is about to work with pharma company as a PR professional? So I think it's just not to be shy, to reach out to people, because I think as an entry-level professional, the most important thing is show your personality and your passion. Even you haven't developed any, very outstanding project or work performance, it's important that as a student, you reach out to people and learn from those professionals. And through this conversation, they can also develop your skills on talking professionally with different practitioners in this industry.
I was going to add, I'm at Meredith. I didn't say this earlier, but I'm in the process of actually still being integrated into Meredith from Time Inc., where I worked earlier. During the last 5 years, I worked for 2 companies that were acquired by other companies. And I think during this process and this period, I've learned that you should never feel too comfortable, right? Jobs change. Your environments change, even your boss can change, and the idea of being flexible and just, kind of seeing the forest through the trees is something I'd want to pass along. But, there are a lot of circumstances that go into the job that are out of one's control. And I wish I would have learned earlier on to just let those things go and focus on controlling what I could control. Because at the end of the day, I think that's a much easier way to approach, one's career.
Okay. I think for me, for what Ms. Scott has said earlier is try not to listen to the wrong people, because sometimes those people won't have your best interests at heart. So I think the biggest thing for you to do is just simply follow your heart. Just ask yourself, what do you like to do? What do you love? Because honestly, doing what you love to do, you won't work a day in your life. So just simply just follow what you want to do. Just don't listen to what the others say when in your heart is just like, that's really not something that I like to do. So that's something that I learned in my journey.
Okay, great, thank you. So my next question, I know you all shared with us how, what it was about the industry you're currently working that drew you there, but has there really been a prominent guiding force in your career path as your career has kind of progressed? Has there been a significant, force that has, moved you along? And it's okay if the answer is no.
I was going to say, I think there are quite a lot of forces. Right now, obviously, we're all facing this pandemic, and I handle internal communications in addition to external communications. And I think we've all gone through other crises. This one seems a bit unprecedented, but I think the hard times, in some ways, are the greatest forces. They make you rise to the occasion. They make you really step up. And that's something that I'm thinking about right now. It's adapting, it's learning to, be smart and strategic in real time, and really be laser focused in again, particularly given what's going on in communications, being appropriate, not being tone deaf, and also being compassionate. It's just something that I'm thinking about the last few days, or I should say weeks. A little bit of a time warp right now.
To build on that, I think surrounding yourself with the right people is so important. I know a couple people have touched on that already, but it's pretty common knowledge that you spend more time with the people that you work with than, you know, your loved ones for the most part. These are the people that you're, you know, going to build your career and your network and everything with, and you're going to be spending a good portion of your life with these people. So I think for me, prioritizing the environment and the people that I have surrounded myself with has really done great things for me in my career, and finding people that are going to be on your side and support you and encourage you to grow and flourish throughout your career has really, I think, made all the difference in the world. And, you know, finding a place to work where, you know, you're on a team of people that are encouraging you to grow and take on new opportunities and are open to hearing what you have to say and what you want to be working on and things. I think that just makes all the difference in the world, rather than, you know, being in a hostile environment where you feel like your creativity and your career growth are stifled.
And so for me, what I would say is it has honestly been my faith in a higher power. It's been confidence in myself, and it's been persistence. I will be very honest. I had no idea about the working world just based on me being a little girl from Memphis, Tennessee. Didn't have any precedents. And it was a strong desire to want more, and a curiosity, and this belief that I could make something of myself. So I think I bring that up because sometimes you don't really have a sense. You may not come from a certain family background. You may not actually know the how. And so there's the force is only the force that's within you around, okay, I like this creative field. I'm going to go for it and I'm going to study it. I am going to find mentors to help me along the way. And I am going to do the very best I can to create a career in this particular path. So for me, I think my force has always been persistent. My work ethic has been unparalleled and unmatched, no matter where I've gone. And I have a self-confidence around myself and a faith.
I think for me, it's been the idea of perfecting my craft, continuing to sort of level up, going from like tech to beauty to very different industries, but very, my skills are still transferable, and being able to translate that has been important to me to show that I'm a very diverse marketer. I can bring a lot to the table. I think it's really important to recognize that you are your biggest cheerleader. I think a lot of people forget that. So whenever you're sort of going after it, going, you know, onto that next role, pursuing that next opportunity, recognize that you are your biggest fan and that you should sort of rally for yourself as much as possible. You know, I've been in so many situations where I was like one of the last two people in an interview and I didn't get it. And it was really difficult and really hard, but recognizing that there's always something better and something more suited to you just around the corner is really important to remember. I do want to talk a little bit about how it's important to recognize what you're good at. I think chasing passion is very important, but also recognizing that you're good at what you're passionate about, and knowing how to successfully sort of push that forward. I think it's important to be really idealistic, as well as really excited and forward-looking.
Okay, great. Thank you all for sharing. So I have another question. So when people are looking for their next job, or they're just starting out in their job search, we all know about LinkedIn. Are there any other resources that you guys have found have helped you in your job search, specifically if you're looking within the PR industry?
I will say that never burn any bridges. A number of my jobs have been through relationships. People remember people that they enjoy working with, the same way people called me, who I had worked with years earlier, picking up the phone and just saying, hey, I don't even know if you're happy, but can you come over and can you talk to me? You never know when you're going to get that phone call. If you're a proven hard worker and someone who gets the job done, and you know your bosses will remember you. I am somebody who hires a lot of the interns I work with. So again, relationships are imperative. And again, I mean, along the same lines, even if you're not getting along with somebody, even if, you know, whatever happens out there in the workforce, do not burn any bridges, because you never know when you are going to be working with that person again. And yeah, just keep, you know, be open-minded, be, you know, let those doors open doors. It's pretty amazing the way this all works.
Definitely. And to tack onto that, I'm a big proponent of what goes around comes around. The job that I have now, I posted on LinkedIn that I was looking for a job, and a girl that I went to undergrad with, we weren't even really friends or acquaintances, messaged me on LinkedIn and said, "Hi, my company's hiring in New York. I'm going to send them your resume, email it to me." It came truly out of nowhere. And so at some point, you know, I'll be looking to return the favor to someone else and giving them that reference. And, you know, it's really hard to cut through all the hundreds of applications that every job posting that you see online has, you know, probably 100 to 200 applications, and really having that relationship with someone in that company that you're trying to work for makes all the difference in the world. And I would say too, you know, keep close track of the companies that you want to work for, you know, identify those key places and make those contacts at that company, because you never know when they're going to be hiring. It could, you know, like Jill said before, that you could get a message out of the blue saying, "Hi, you know, I know we've been chatting. There's this job opening. I want to send in your stuff." So maintaining those relationships, and also be the kind of person that someone wants to recommend for a job, I think is a big one too. You know, understanding that the person that's recommending you for this job is putting themselves and their job on the line as well by recommending you. So show up, do your research, you know, be an active participant in your own career. And I think there isn't much else to say about that.
I would say join different professional committee. I know, so now I am part of the very proactive member in New York Wiki, which is New York Women in Communication Industry, and also pretty involved in PRSA. And because through joining those happy hour or events, it's on that kind of environment, it's easier for you to say, "Hey, you know, how's it going?" And you start to introduce each other, and, you know, attend the meeting, the monthly meeting. And, you know, sometimes when you really, you know, be open to yourself, open to others, and it's more likely that people would say, "Oh, what are you, do you have a, are you have an internship right now? Do you want to shadow me?" You know, just this kind of conversation would just pop up when you're really engaged and show commitment in a group. So I think getting involved in different committees, knowing people, be open-minded, it's really a great advice that I can provide.
For me, is a little bit different. How I use Instagram. Yes, I use LinkedIn, but I use Instagram and Twitter like crazy, because I know for me, for the people that I want to interact with, it's a bunch of celebrities, as well as associate editors of different sites as sites in other companies. So I'm always persistent with going into their message box and telling them who I am. Always just having a little message and a link to the podcast so that they can listen to it and see if they like it or not. And from that on in, you also need to have patience too with that, because sometimes it will take a week or maybe a month until they see your actual message and either like it or just have a simple response to it. So you got to be fearless when you're trying to make those relationships and those connections with different people. As far as LinkedIn, I'm almost on it every day, just trying to post something that is related to what I'm doing, just trying to get people to see my consistency as well as the different content that I'm creating, because many companies are looking for you know, the consistency or the type of things that make you different from everybody else. So sometimes you really got to just, although you don't want to post that video or make that episode or something, you just got to do it because you know what you want at the end, and it's going to take, you know, it's going to take some work. Even when you don't want to do it, you still got to do it, and it'll take you a long way.
I think number one is always follow up. People think that, oh, I sent an email to this person, they never replied to me. It must mean that they just don't want to talk to me. The truth is that we're really busy. And I think no other industry aside from the PR marketing industry really understands the concept of it's about who you know. And we understand how hard it took us to get to where we are. And so we recognize the importance of sort of passing it along. So always follow up. Number two, learn how to pitch yourself. It's not enough sometimes to just send a LinkedIn message and hope that it really hits home for that person. You have to learn how to pitch yourself just like you would any product or brand. And so that means, you know, it's like I said earlier, be your own cheerleader, bring out that highlight reel, figure out how to kind of set yourself up so you're showing this person why you would be an asset, what their need is, and how you're fulfilling it. There's such importance to learning how to pitch yourself properly, I think.
Also, I mean, subscribe to as many online platforms as possible. I mean, there's Monster, Indeed, the NYU dashboard is great. And then I also think internships is a huge one. The majority of my network, after graduating, I created during my time at internships. You know, and when you're applying for jobs, you need professional recommendations, and, you know, those agencies might be hiring, or, you know, the last place that I interned at was part of a larger holding group that owns, you know, Weber Shandwick, Golan, etc. So, you know, they reached out to the holding group's HR person to see if they had any openings, because the agency that I was at didn't, but because they liked me as an employee and because I asked, they did that outreach for me. So I can't stress enough how vital those internships were for me during school. And then afterwards, when I was looking for a job, I had, you know, a whole group of people that I could reach out to looking for a job. And that's a great way to make relationships as well.
I have one other idea, and I think this sounds like it sounds ancient, but I'm older than all of you. What about a good old-fashioned cold call? I once hired somebody several years ago who wrote me out of the blue, fantastic letter, well written, you know, solid writing, entertained me, informed me, and I don't know, 3 paragraphs in, I was like, wow, she can write. And she followed up with me. It was like the right place at the right time for her. And she worked for me for 3 years. So you never know. Take a risk. Do something old fashioned once in a while. I think you never know.
I 100% agree with you, Jill.
Well, that's actually a great segue into the next question I had, which is what can applicants do if they are applying to a job where they know there's, you know, dozens or even hundreds of other applicants? What can they do to stand out from the crowd? Jill, you gave us a great example of do something a little bit old-fashioned, more personal connection. Are there any other tips or tricks that you guys would suggest?
I just want to continue on what Jill said. When I recommend to my students and mentees to do the cold call, which I do, I just tell them to frame it, right? So if you frame it, and if you want to get an informational, hi, my name is Olivia. I saw the post. I really have something to offer. Can I have 15 minutes of your time? But in that 15 minutes, framing it 10, 15, because nobody's going to say no to a 15-minute like informational, right? 15 minutes. Don't just, when you say, can I have some of your time? I'm going to say no, because my time is already overextended. But if you say, can I have 15 minutes of your time? And I would like to share with you some recent research that was done amongst millennials around XYZ in my industry. If you give me something, if you're calling me with something, because the reality is I already know that you want something, you want a job, like everybody else who's calling, right? And that's not to be ornery. It's just like, that's it. You're calling me, which means you want something from me. But those that actually take the time to create something and give me something, I'm like, oh, not just a donut or coffee, because I don't need either one of those. But if they're offering to give me something, you know, some research, or, you know, someone who has taken the time to find an article, maybe even written about me and stroke my ego about me, I'm going to give them a little more time a day. But framing it, definitely.
I think we were talking about branding and marketing yourself. I think having your elevator pitch kind of prepared on yourself at all times, and, you know, really put what are the key things that are going to make you the ideal candidate for this position right at the top. Build your case, you know, just like you would do a press release, like the most important information at the top, build it with support in the middle, and then wrap it up at the end. I think make sure you're doing your research, make, you know, for cover letters and notes and things, make them relevant to the company, the person that you're actively talking to, so that, you know, they know that you did your homework, you did your research, you know what you're talking about, and just everything needs to come back to why you are the perfect person for this job, for this internship, for this whatever it is that you're, you know, you need from this person. I think at the end of the day, it needs to all come back to what can you do for them.
Yeah, to specifically answer how do you stand out among hundreds of applicants, I usually will just search if the HR of the company on LinkedIn, and maybe there's a couple of recruiters in the company. I will actually reach out to every one of them, and maybe even the person that I reach out is not responsible for hiring a specific position. They might share my email or info with the recruiter that they're hiring for that position. So in a note, I would say hi and why I'm interested in this position, what do I got, why I am a great fit, and then I will add some my cover letter, even the applicant and the position is not requiring for a cover letter, and I will add some work samples, so that to show that I am more than qualified on the specific position. And usually when I reach out to the HR or recruiter in person, half of them will reply me. So I think that's a pretty, and that kind of require practice. So I really encourage whoever really wants specific jobs, try to do more research and reach out to any recruiter that's in a company.
I once accidentally sent a LinkedIn message to a CEO of a beauty company that I really wanted to work for. And I called her by the name of another CEO. And I will regret it to this day. I was young, but that is no excuse. So know your stuff, know who you're talking to. And like some of my colleagues have said earlier, personalize your communications, because no one likes to get, you know, the carbon copy of someone else's message. And we can tell. It's very easy to tell, and it doesn't take too long to just sort of tweak your message a little bit to make it more personalized, to make it feel more like it belongs to that person, as opposed to, you know, the 10 people on your list that you're trying to get in touch with. We appreciate the time, we appreciate the effort that goes into something like that.
That's a good segue too. It made me think of writing and how when I read things that are grammatically incorrect or sloppy mistakes, I mean, we all make those sloppy mistakes, but that's why we put our writing down, give it a couple, either it's 20 minutes, you know, sleep on it, but don't send something out unless it's been proofed. Take the time to make sure the first impression is going to stick. Somebody also mentioned, I apologize, I can't remember who said this, about basically getting your elevator pitch down. You know, you're only going to have the first 2 lines in a letter, the same way you're only going to have about 3 minutes before the interviewer could potentially lose interest. So again, like, just get that message. What's your who, what, where, when, how, why, and just get it, get it together very quickly. But again, I mean, the fact checking, the writing, it's just, I don't know, I'm a stickler on writing. It drives me crazy when I see sloppy mistakes, and you could be so talented, but you just threw it away because you lost me at a misspelling or the fact that you didn't spell my last name right.
All right, so again, to our attendees, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. Since nobody's typing in questions, I think maybe I'll flip it around on our panelists. If you were at this stage in your career, if you were just graduating from either an undergrad or a graduate program, and you had the opportunity to talk to someone who already worked in the industry that you were trying to get into, what's one question you would ask them? If you would ask any.
I always ask this question when I do when I'm in an interview or something like that. I just always ask, like, what was their first experience like? Because your first could be your worst. So like, what was your first experience in the industry, and how was it, and then what did you learn from it?
I would also ask about the culture. What kind of culture would you be potentially working in? How's the work and life balance? That's something, just so important. We all know how much time we spend at work. And a little bit just about the flexibility. Are there people who work from home? Are there people who, just, what's kind of the quality of life at the potential workplace?
And then, go ahead.
I would ask what inspire you day to day, even you have worked in this company for 5 years, 10 years. What is something that inspire you and drive you to, show your commitment in this industry or this company? And what is something, and what kind of effort that you did so that you can stay inspired?
I think I would ask why they stayed. I think my generation tends to sort of jump into something and then jump out of it just as quickly. I have a lot of friends that kind of have been in and out of different industries and jobs, and nothing has really clicked for them. And for me, I jumped from like tech to cosmetic pharmaceuticals, and I'd love to ask the question of why they decided to stick around, and what was it for them that made them want to continue. I'm always curious to hear that.
I would want to know, similar to the question that you just asked, kind of what was the defining moment for you? What made you realize that you were in the right place, in the right industry, in the right job? Like, what was it that really clicked for you? Whether it's positive, negative, whatever it was. I mean, a defining moment can be a lot of different things. But I think that kind of ties back to that person's journey and like their experience getting to where they are. And you could potentially get some interesting responses.
I think another question could be, because when you have interviews or when you write in your resume, you always want to bring something to the company. So I think I would always ask, like, what was the asset that you brought to the company? Like, what was the thing that made you that you brought the change to the company? So I would definitely ask that.
Okay, and then maybe looking back again, when you were first starting out in your career, what was one piece of advice that you really took with you, or maybe what's some advice that you wish you got when you were starting out?
I think I think I touched on this before, that I had a very clear idea when I started grad school that I wanted to go into entertainment PR. And I think, you know, people have these romanticized ideas of, you know, the flashy industries, whether that's entertainment, film, TV, whatever it is. And I think something that I learned throughout my time in my internships and then now my job is, and I mentioned this before, that the people that you work with can make or break your job and your experience at that company, because clients change all the time. You know, every client has things that make them a pain to work with or really awesome or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, those people that are on your team that you're working with every single day aren't going to change. And so the environment that you're in, the flexibility of the company that you're at, like there's so much room to move and change your trajectory within a company. But if you find a place to work that really values their employees as humans and people and puts that first rather than, you know, the expectation that you're going to be working 80 hours a week, I think the clients and the work that you're doing is, I found, wasn't as important for me as the environment that I was working in, because the work can always change and be altered to something else. But at the end of the day, the people that you're working with, you spend the most time with them out of pretty much everyone in your life. So that really can make your life and your working experience a really awesome thing.
Okay, if no one else wants to answer that question, we do have someone just typed into the chat box. So I'll read it out. Unemployment rate is expected to soar. And
Can I just jump in there?
Sure.
I had one quick thing. Sorry, it took me a little long to get off mute.
Oh, that's okay.
I would say two other things. Really, don't be so hard on yourself. It's important to take work very seriously, and if you're driven, you will do that. But it's all about experience. So I would just, yes, work is very, very important. And I think we're all in agreement. We want to move up. We want to challenge ourselves. We want to, especially when we're younger. I mean, well, I think as we get older too, you know, you want to continue on that trajectory. But at the same time, I do think, you know, be easy on yourself. You're going to make mistakes. It's human. So that's something. And along those lines, the second thing is, I got a great piece of advice probably 10 years ago from somebody who is somebody who I worked for, who was very tough. And she gave excellent advice when she said, slow down to speed up. You know, some of us, particularly in PR, we balance or juggle a lot of balls. And I know I used to work very, very quickly, and I still do. But sometimes when you work very quickly, you also, there's an opportunity to go so quickly, you know, something's going to fall through the cracks. So it's important to kind of slow down in order to speed up. You only want to do something once and make that impression, you know, a first time. So, you know, just wanted to pass that along while I had the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Does anyone else have anything else they want to share? All right, so we have a question coming into the chat box. So unemployment rate is expected to rise, and most of us will probably have a rough time landing a job or internship. What strategy would you follow as an international student trying to get their foot in the door?
So, as an international student, I would say no matter what the environment is, as a foreigner, it's always harder to get a job, especially in the communication industry, because, you know, English is not the first language of ours, and also we're also, you know, adapting the culture in the United States. So I would say, instead of saying, oh, I'm afraid I cannot get a job as an international student, but say I am an international student and I have the advantage because blah blah blah. So for me, when I really trying to dive into healthcare, I know is because I really care about the diversity and inclusion in healthcare industry. I care about how minority community can access to healthcare services, or how they can get a better healthcare, or how I can support healthcare leaders or officials to listen to people from multicultural society. So I think, so I also, that's why I did a research around this on my capstone. And when I have an interview with the agency that I'm working for now, I show what's my passion in healthcare industry, and why I have this kind of insights is because I'm an individual from the other country, and that is some insights that probably general American don't have. So I think it's very important to know what is your real passion, and how do you connect your passion with your identity as an international student. And now I'll not only show your passion, but also prove them, show some work that you do in NYU, how they can support your passion and your identity. And I think the more you practice to pitch yourself and different people through networking, the more confident you will get. So just be confident and practice.
I have to say that it's important to also be flexible. I think I had a very idealistic idea of what my job would look like coming out of college. And I thought that I was going to go off and do all these great big things right out the gate. But it's also recognizing to be patient with myself, and to realize that every position that I have is a stepping stone to go elsewhere. So if you have to be flexible, if you have to take on a role that is not your ideal, then I recommend that you go for it. You do really well, and you take those skills and you take examples from that role to take on to your next role. So it's important to be very flexible.
Okay, so we're at the 5-minute mark. If anybody has any other questions, now's the time to put it into the chat. Again, we have 5 more minutes, but if no questions come in, I'm gonna quickly share my slides with you, because I just have a few more things that I just wanna share with you all. So thank you again, everybody, for attending. Hopefully you were able to stay for both panel sessions that we had. Here's some of the PR League social media handles. So follow them on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We hope that you all stay in touch. And then if you want to post about this summit, the hashtag PRL Summit 20. Let me see any other questions. Okay, so someone said thank you in the chat box, so you're welcome. Thank you for attending, and I want to thank the panelists for taking the time to speak with our students tonight. Thank you all. This was really great. Michael says this was awesome, so thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for having us. Had a lovely time.
Thank you so much.
Stay healthy.
Yes, everyone stay safe, healthy, and indoors.
And sane.
Oh, yeah.
Organize this.
If anybody has any questions about what I do in particular, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to hop on the phone with you, answer any questions that you might have. I remember how hard it was for me when I was looking for a job, and when I was kind of exploring my options. And I think it's really important to kind of pass that torch along. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.